this one caught my eye, and I have to do it. And I'm sorry for those people that fucking can't stand this dude, because I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. This is, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that don't know, this is Glenn Beck, and I don't know why the fucking screen is the way it is. But war before election day is the plan. And by the way, one of the only reasons I show Glenn Beck is not because he says anything particularly pithy or interesting, but that he is sort of representative of an actual collective thought on the right. That if you see him say it, there's dozens of other people saying it, he's either the last to get it before it hits kind of the semi-mainstream, or he's the impetus for, the early part of it, and he rides some stupid fucking talking point forever. So this is the play. Is Biden leading us into another war as an election scheme?
Thomas Massey is with us, who was just on CNN questioning the intelligence of some of the anchors there. I don't know how you could possibly do that, Thomas Massey.
Well, I just questioned their preparedness. Now, I never questioned that about you or your staff. But...
Yeah, because never ask a question you already know the answer to, and yeah.
And we're the ones you should, really. Really.
No, she claimed she referenced 19 different things I had voted on and claimed she had spent a whopping 2 minutes studying one of them, and it made her an expert.
Real quick, Massey, understand, I'm as a fellow Kentuckian, I just want to give you the heads up. This dumb motherfucker reads news articles that are put on the screen in front of him by his staff as if he has read them before, when he has not. Just for the record, he reads them even though there's a camera on him, and you can see that he has never seen the article before. Sometimes he's even dumb enough to mention it. He reads it out loud, and he reads it to his listeners on the radio as if they're stupid for not knowing it. Just to clarify.
Okay, we want to talk to you about what's happening overseas with the Houthis.
Speaking of things that these guys don't know anything about.
I'm really torn on this because...
Oh, Getter 9, I'm sorry I've made you dream about Glenn Beck. I'm so sorry. I hope it was hilarious. Did he look like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man when he was attacking New York?
Because I feel as though we are backing into yet another war.
That's not how you enter a war. I understand it would be uncomfortable if you did.
Drop your shorts and bend over, Mr. Babar.
Moon River. It's Operation Moon River.
I also think there are people in this administration that want war. I also know that this administration continues to send money over to Iran. So, our literal enemy in this, we're helping fund. So this isn't serious.
No, we're not. No, we aren't. We are not literally sending money over to Iran. We aren't.
It's on anybody's part. However, they are shooting at us, launching missiles.
The Houthis
at our Navy, and aren't we defending ourselves? How should we look at this?
Okay, so the Houthis, just so you know, have well before we fired on them at all, along with the UK and, again, Australia and like the Netherlands and other countries backing us up as well. They were firing on civilian ships. They hit like over 20 ships, okay? We waited, literally, the only time we fired on any Houthis directly up to that point was when a ship that had been hit twice in the same day sent out a distress call. Our helicopters responded because they were, they'd already taken some people hostage on another ship. And our guys showed up, and those guys, the Houthis, fired on our helicopters. And our helicopters did what our helicopters do when someone fires on them. Right. Yes, they hit a U.S. cargo ship today, and didn't damage it, by the way. It kept on its way. So we didn't jump straight into this. We didn't, like the first attempt at a ship that was tangentially related to an ally or whatever. We didn't, you're like, finally, which page of the Project for a New American Century Middle Eastern Plan do we go through? bang, strike hard, first strike hard, no mercy, sir. It's the Cobra Kai doctrine. No, we literally were like, knock it off, fucking knock it off. They fired missiles at Israel. They fired missiles at us. They fired missiles in, I think even into Saudi Arabia. And we're literally batting them out of the sky, just shooting them down, not bombing or hitting anybody. And they fired on us. And we'll talk about the 2 Navy SEALs. Although they're 2 sailors. I don't know that they're Navy SEAls. That's one of the debate or whatever. For those of you who don't know, 2 Navy sailors are missing off the coast of Somalia because people were, the Houthis were getting weapons from Somalia, and they were interdicting ships in that area, the Navy was, and in a boarding operation, 2 Navy seamen fell into the ocean. They have not been found yet. One fell in and the other right after him. The question is, were they fired upon? Did they get shot and fall, or did they just, it was very choppy water. There's a lot going on there, but that was closer to Somalia, not directly related, was not Houthi related, was not on that side of the sea. It's very specific. Yeah. So they are still looking for them. These are 2 men who fell overboard during this ship-to-ship incursion. So anyways, we waited until they fired on us to fire back on them. And then we didn't even fire after, just this exchange of gunfire from these 3 ships. There were four boats, 4 Houthi boats. 3 of them were sunk, and 1 of them fled. We did not chase the one that fled and blow it out of the sea. We didn't kill them. We allowed them to flee. We just they left the area. That was enough. That's all. That was the mission. And they went away. After that, then you have the Houthis firing missiles at one of our ships. And that's when we returned fire and basically just destroyed their ability to get them to stop doing all this shit. To wit, they fired, I think, 2 more things because they had other areas, and we hit those, and then that's basically been it since. The Houthis are not, okay, there's some question, and Ro Khanna talked about this, and I would expect him to know better. But Ro Khanna was saying, before you go to war, and I've seen this a bunch, KK Kalinske did the same shit. You have to declare war on a country before you go to war with that country. Okay, first of all, the Houthis are not the government of that country. They're not recognized as the government of that country. We are not at war with Yemen. We did not fire on Yemen. We fired into, specifically, Houthi-controlled areas where their military sites were. That's it. We did not, any more than, I suppose, if you... in Clear and Present Danger, remember when they hit the training camp, the Irish training camp that was in Afghanistan? That's not attacking Afghanistan. That's hitting the training camp that's there because there's no part of that that's related to the government. The Yemenis thanked us for hitting the Houthi areas, just for the record. The Houthis have been starving people, enslaving them. They take child brides and child soldiers. They're fucking awful. So we hit those places, and that's been that. And what these folks are saying is that this is an example, and it's been like any other anti-terrorist excursion or intervention we've done in the past, hitting ISIS or some other group when they've fired on civilians or sent suicide bombers into an area or fired missiles, any of that shit. We've done that tons of times. During Trump, they did it a bunch of times. He was beating his fucking chest all the time, and Trump, for the record, killed Qasem Soleimani in Iraq on his way to the airport. This was not a guy who was going from one place to give orders to blow something up. There was nothing inherently dangerous about him at that very moment. He's a terrible human being. No one should ever mourn his passing. But let's be abundantly clear that that was an absolute provocation and arguably, talk about just green lighting the assassination of leaders in countries. It's fucked up. Meanwhile, Biden hits just military targets after they have fired multiple missiles at our warships and at civilian craft, and then they did it again. So anyways, yeah, the U.S. has not declared war since World War II. Well, yeah, but we also have been, technically speaking, not at war with any nation state since then. Because again, this is the part Ro Khanna should know. If they wanted to vote about whether we should go to war with the Houthis, in Yemen, that we should declare war on Yemen or officially declare war, you would have to, before you did that, you would have to have another vote. Does anybody know what the other vote would have? Before you could vote to declare war on the Houthi areas, or Yemen, do you know what the vote, you'd have to have a vote before that to make that happen? Anybody? Yes, exactly. Twisted Stepsister gets it right. You would have to legally recognize the Houthis as the government of Yemen. It's like saying to fight ISIS in Syria, you would have to resolve that ISIS is the government of Syria to fire back at them. Yeah, you'd have to recognize them as the government for you to declare war, because you can't declare war on somebody. You couldn't declare war on the fucking mafia. Does that make sense? Doesn't work that way. Iraq is a nation state. That is true. Different issue, though. That's why they had to go to the UN and all that's bullshit. And by the way, I will not side with that action. I think there's a very distinct difference between what was done in Iraq, and that's why I protested against it. I think a lot of you did as well. There's a very distinct difference between Iraq as a country, which, even if you don't like the leadership, had a leadership, and Afghanistan, which is just a tribal area that includes 12 tribes of basically warring groups. That's not really, the borders are established by how far other countries don't want to go. That's different. Those are two different situations, and I would say this is much more akin to to Afghanistan in that regard. Hitting a terrorist training camp in Afghanistan, you don't have to declare war on Afghanistan to bomb a terrorist training camp. Yeah. Well, the Mexican drug cartels are different because they're not technically a political movement. They are not seeking to control specifically through politics, and they have no version of a sort of a legal option. There is no legal option for them to, I guess, carry drugs into other countries and make money that way. Whereas politically, you have other options besides terrorism. Yeah. So, anyways, like, you can get far. The point overall is that this asshole is painting this like forever war shit around both us supporting Israel or supporting Ukraine, which are wars while we are supporting allies we are not in, right? We are not in those wars. We are helping those folks, but we do not have boots on the ground. We do not have soldiers there. We are not patrolling the skies. We do not we are not giving them Overwatch. We are not providing snipers. We are not providing aircraft, bombers, fucking radar, none of that shit. We're giving them some intel and gear, and that's it. But there are no physical people involved in this, which is, again, ask anybody who was deployed in Afghanistan or Iraq, the difference. Yeah, serving bogus. CSL. Yep, serving in bogus Bush Desert Storm is why I left the USAF afterwards. Right. Well, because it matters who's sending you out. Right. Matters who's deploying you and what their standard is. And again, we didn't drop troops on the ground in fucking Yemen. We did not invade the Houthi areas of that, nor are we going to. And anybody who's like, this is what Glenn Beck is trying to do. Glenn Beck is suddenly becoming this, like, trying to scoop up the faux peacenik bullshit about the military-industrial complex thing, because it's a good internet talking point. He doesn't believe it, though.
Well, first of all, you should look at it as this is election season. And when you're at war, there's a greater tendency to vote for the commander-in-chief who's waging the war. And I am worried that he's going to draw us into a war with this. Now, I believe that he has an obligation to come to Congress, and I think he had time to do it if he had time.
You are wrong.
To organize an international coalition, or at least with Great Britain, to pull this off. He had time to come to us.
He didn't have to come to you. And if he came to you, it would be news that he was asking for permission to strike these places, which are like terrorist launch sites, and that would give them time to move them. And the snail's pace with which the Republicans are operating, at this point, you'll have a hard time convincing me that at least a couple of them aren't sympathetic to the Houthis firing on our ships and on container ships. The Marjorie Taylor Greens, the way they have sided against Ukraine so thoroughly and so pro-Russia, and since Iran and Russia are like this, and Russia's on top like that, or maybe the other way around, the two of them, There's more than two of them that would be involved in this, that would bring it up and bring it to the floor and drag it on. And by the time we strike the sites, they've moved their shit and it's made them ineffective. It's just silly.
And the war powers.
Okay, sorry. Iowa caucus results due at 5:45 our time. All right, yeah, we might roll into that. We'll see what the caucus is going on here.
Act
Thanks,
requires him to do that. It allows him to respond defensively in the case of emergency, but that would be like an imminent attack. It wouldn't be something where you plan, some kind of retaliation for things that have gone on for months.
Okay. First of all, these aren't things that have gone on for months. They were firing on the ships. That was what we were letting happen. They just fired on our ship. They have the capability of doing it. They also fired missiles and drones at Israel, which is an ally, which you guys used to give a fuck about until it became politically disadvantageous, apparently. And I mean Republicans in this particular case. So the idea that they did fire on us, it was timely. The coordination, by the way. All right, can we just swipe away our bullshit naivete for a second and talk as fucking grown-ups? You're, whoever you are out there watching an intertube land, I'm the president of the United States and you're the queen of the Netherlands. And the person sitting next to you is the king of England. And the prime minister of go flagellate yourself here. And we are all aware that food and stuff that doesn't get through that area and through the Suez Canal, we're going to be fine. But a lot of poor people are going to starve to death, and a lot of oil isn't going to get where it's going, and a lot of people are going to be directly affected by this. And while we might have, a dent in our economy because of it, a lot of fucking other people will die. And that will create refugees, and those refugees will storm to the borders of their countries, and that storming to the borders will cascade into sectarian violence and all that shit, right? And we know this, and things are getting hot in that part of the world, and they're trying to block these ships, and we're batting their shit away. But there's an argument about, okay, what happens if they step past this point? What do we agree on? What do we all feel is valuable? If they hit one of our ships or one of your ships, we got to respond. Are you guys in or not? Yes. Okay. So we make that decision. The hit doesn't come for a few days, right? A week and a half later, it does ratchet up. We're batting these dickheads away. They fire on one of our helicopters. We fire on them. Then they fire a missile at one of our ships. And we're like, fuck that. Boom. That was the argument. The idea that somehow the minute they fired a missile at one of our ships, that was when we were like, oh, fuck, I didn't know they were going to do this. How could, look at this. How did this happen? Like, you don't think they fucking have a strategy of like, if this happens, this happens. If this happens, this happens. If this happens, this happens. This is what the fuck a Pentagon is for. You think we're the only ones with a Department of Defense in that regard? Are you out of your fucking mind? They did not just run to England and go, hey, it's 3:00. You guys want to, the UN gave us the go-ahead to tell these guys to fuck off. You guys want to hang for like a week? Or because they just fired at us. I didn't even think about what we would do then. It's just dumb. It's childish. And the idea that these assholes want any situation where, Biden's making a decision, they're going to fucking second guess it. Meanwhile, somebody pointed out that on Trump's first deployment, a Navy SEAL died. To them, that's like, well, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs.
So
the war. Can we talk about the War Powers Act here for a second? Because
fuck off.
I believe the War Powers Act is correct in a world where we have missiles. If somebody's launching a missile, the president does not have time to go to Congress and say, hey, I want to make my case here that in 12 minutes we're all going to be vaporized. However, like you said, it's been 90 plus days since this happened. We've watched it happen. They've been...
No. Oh, no. Hold on one second. The Okay. It's going to make trade operations overseas in Middle East waters. Can report the port vessel hit from above by a missile. Okay, this is the most recent one. Hold on. There was one other. So this is, hold on. Oink. Now, because they've just fired another one. Let's see. It's Sunday. It's the Sunday one. Trying to find the actual date of the. Yeah. So, anyways, this is, first of all, let's just be abundantly clear. They have the capacity to fire all the way to Israel. They have missiles that can go 1,000 miles. Where the Houthis fired the first missile that was ever shot down in space because it literally went up high enough where we had to shoot it down up there. We're aware of their range. They have absolutely the ability to do it. And then they fired a couple of missiles at us that didn't fly far enough. They landed short of their target, largely because our ships knew where they were coming, could tell how far, and they maneuvered out of the way. And they were fired from inside the country, so their travel time was, was such that we could tell what their trajectory would be, where they would land. They were relatively dumb in that regard, and so we were able to move the ship. That's more than likely what happened. The other thing is that then they fired an anti-ship ballistic missile fired toward the southern Red Sea commercial shipping lanes. And then the earlier missile failed in flight, impacted on land in Yemen. There were no injuries or damage reported by them. This is in Sana'a. And the latest attack on commercial shipping came a day after CENTCOM said it had shot down an anti-ship cruise missile fired by the Houthis toward the American warship USS Laboon as it operated in the Red Sea. It was the first acknowledged attack by the Houthis on a U.S. warship since the U.S. and U.K. military started. Since then, let's see, they have the other one, targeting commercial vessels, claiming his legitimate response to Israel's ongoing war with Palestine and the militant group Hamas, which is bullshit. It's like if I start shooting or I start robbing banks, and I tell the police I'm going to stop robbing banks as soon as you solve the homelessness problem. Is that it? And by the way, this is the best part. Are you going to take the money you're stealing from the banks and give it to the homeless? No, not at all. Actually, we're stealing the money and setting it on fire. So you're not, that money, those people are insured. They'll get their money back, right? But you're going to steal the money and you're not giving it to the homeless. No, we're not giving it to them. What are you going to do? We're going to either keep it ourselves and use it to fund our military stuff, or we're going to just destroy it like the Joker. Yeah.
They've been fighting and shooting against us, et cetera, et cetera. The president has a responsibility to go in front of the American people and Congress and make his case, and Congress needs to decide.
Okay, fuck you. Where was this talk when Trump assassinated Soleimani? Half of this dust up came from Trump assassinating Soleimani, handing over the Golan Heights, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and moving the embassy there. He was like, slapdash was in the middle. Why won't anybody do this? Well, fuck it. Let's just do it all. And then you find out why, but not on your watch. It's, they hunker down and they decide, okay, U.S. policy has just switched on to scorched earth. Fuck us. We're back to the Bush doctrine essentially, and we've got no other option but to just murder everything in our, because they're never even the trustworthy parts. It's just a setup. It's what we do. It's what they do.
Correct.
Absolutely. You are
gibberish.
Absolutely correct. We have abdicated, though, our authority. We've been involved in Yemen. Here's what I don't see reported in the news since about 2015, and in 2018, I teamed up with Ro Khanna and tried to get a war powers resolution passed.
Yep.
To get us back out of Yemen. This was in 2018. Paul Ryan.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, we're not in Yemen. What Massey was trying to do, and I suppose trying to get Ro Khanna in on it, was stop our humanitarian aid to Yemen, because we give We've given $5.8 billion to Yemen in an attempt effectively to stave off the starvation that was happening there and to some degree, I suppose, bribe the peace a little bit. What Massey wanted to do was stop us giving that money. And essentially, once that money dries up, then the Yemenis, who are the ones we are actually supporting with food and other stuff, not military aid, but food, would it result in those people getting wiped out by the Houthis, who are backed by Iran, have all the food and weapons they could possibly want.
Did a parliamentary trick. He hid the vote on our war powers resolution in the farm bill. And then, so people voted for the farm bill and put our war powers resolution to bed. So we tried again, and he hid it in the Manage Our Wolves Act. If you voted for the Manage Our Wolves Act to come to the floor of the House, you voted against the Ro Khanna Thomas Massey War Powers Resolution, according to the War Powers Act, to get us out of Yemen.
Think of this. Our Congress is voting on management of wolves, but not whether or not we go to war.
Okay, no. That's not an alternative reality. We do not stop being a country so that we can deal with other shit. It's not an either or, motherfucker. And by the way, let's be abundantly clear. Understand what this dumbass does for a living. And then understand that he picked out his sweater for the day and his little shirt, and he got, somebody comes in and squeegees the spittle off of his fucking mic and wrings out the fucking pop filter on it every night, and defarts Stu's chair every evening, and he goes out and has dinner, brought to him or some shit. That all happens while at the same time he comes on the show and argues about shit he has no idea about. He manages to do that. Look at it as sort of him wiping his own ass as the wolf management part, and this as his personal war with his own vocabulary in terms of speaking into this microphone. The idea that the United States can't deal with our domestic issues and our foreign issues, and the reason we're not voting on whether or not we go to war, whatever, this is ages ago. This is not about, oh God, he's gonna even understand.
Correct. And then,
No, not correct. It's a terrible analogy. It's fucking stupid.
A year later, we were able to get it to the floor.
Oh, really? You were able to get it to the floor?
Passed it in the House. Mm-hmm. We followed, I don't even agree completely with the War Powers Act that was passed in the 1970s, especially not the interpretation that people have of it. But we were able to get a resolution passed to get us out of Yemen in 2019. And then it went from the House to the Senate, and they passed it with 53 votes. But Donald Trump vetoed it. Now, to get us out of Yemen in 2019. And then it went from the House to the Senate, and they passed it with 53 votes. But Donald Trump vetoed it. Now, it was, it's within his authority to veto it, but that demonstrated to me how ridiculous the War Powers Act is, because it effectively...
It didn't demonstrate to you how, I guess, ridiculous Donald Trump is, or...
It takes 2/3 of us to override a president's veto. So what...
Oh, man. It's your guy! You do realize this whole argument is shit unless it ends with, and Biden vetoed it.
What it means is the War Powers Act, if you believe in it, with 33% of Congress, the president can go to war because it takes 2/3 to stop him. It's ridiculous.
No, it doesn't. Okay, we weren't at war in Yemen. The curtailment of that particular bill wasn't about declaring war in Yemen. We were not at war with Yemen. We never were. There was never even an idea that we were. This is just fucking stupid. It's wholly unrelated. And if it is, if you took everything as these assholes said it, understand what this asshole is trying to say is that we were nearing going to war in 2015. Donald Trump took us fully into war in Yemen while he was president and left us there. And we're still there. because again, we amongst with a bunch of other countries have been trying to stave off the utter starvation in Yemen and trying to buy the peace with the Yemeni government.
Ridiculous.
Don't me. React as if you just found out, what you did, that Donald Trump is the one who vetoed that.
So what are you hearing up on the Hill about all of this? Where are we headed, Thomas?
This is what you're seeing here is a grown man who realizes that he has hit an absolute wall on his ideology. That the minute Thomas Massey said that it was Trump that kept us in Yemen and that reinforced the doctrine that allows presidents to bomb Yemen, I suppose. That's the minute he said Trump vetoed it. His argument is dead in the water. So where do you go after that? Where literally you look at the ceiling and you go, where are we? Where am I?
I mean, I am worried that we're going to be expanding conflicts in the Middle East.
An adult human being who loves their country and actually believes in their constitution and has, fucking any brains at all, would be worried that others would escalate things in the Middle East. That other countries, after we've said knock it off a dozen times and have not fired on them, would stop firing at us. I hope they learn their lesson. But we are not ratcheting up when we respond. A rape victim who shoots the person who is attacking them is not escalating the violence. That's not how it works. If you're the one being attacked, and in this particular reason for completely bullshit rando reasons, the idea that the Houthis are bombing civilian cargo ships with people from fucking Bahrain and India and Japan and on them because of the Palestinians, like they give a duck fuck, is an absurdity. And the idea that we would sit there and let them fire on civilian ships when we can stop them because, they're on the right side of history when they're A, not, and B, full of shit.
This is there's some people up here that are just begging for a war with Iran. And
gee, I wonder what party that is. There's a party that they put together. I'm gonna have to go way back. There was one. As a matter of fact, I think one of their presidential candidates once sang a song jokingly, "Bomb, bomb, 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 bomb Iran," making a reference to in his party. That was a regular refrain. Also, you're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, if you will. Patreon.com/Hal Sparks.
Whether it's something that grows out of Gaza or whether it's something that grows out of Yemen. And I think we need to take a step back and look at this and say, is that in the best interest of our country to have a full-blown war with Iran? And I'm worried that this president...
No. And that's not what this is. Here's an idea. Do you have any idea what it would take for Iran to think it's a good idea to have a full-blown war with the United States? Think seriously. Look, these kind of like big fights between two countries always bad, especially one. They've got a relatively serious navy and a relatively serious air force, the Iranians, but nowhere near the level that they would need to go anywhere near what we are capable of by any measure. And we wouldn't be alone because we would be fighting to protect civilian ships and the citizens in those areas and our own lives and our own people's lives. They would be fighting to choke off the traffic in the Red Sea. That's it. That's what they're fighting for. Okay. Another thing, real quick. I gotta show you. Hold on. We'll go back up to you guys, up to here. Give me 1 second. Let's see if this is. No, I have it. I know I have it in here somewhere. Hold on. Oh, it's in my. Yeah, here you go. So the Iranians, yeah. In 2018, the Iranians lost one of their biggest military ships. And then let me make this other one too. Okay, yeah, two. Here's two. Okay, 2018. You want to see a picture of the Iranians' biggest military ship that they have / had? Here it is. This is the Karg, which, I mean, it's a little Klingon for me, but the Karg right there used to look like that, and then it looked like that, and they were, it was, there were a couple. I mean, they've had their tankers hit as well, but this one started with a fire in the galley, in the yeah. And meanwhile, the Syrians, these were drone striking Iranian ships all through this area. Only thing we can say is the fire has started inside the ship. In that sense, it looks different from the others, which is these other, where these other ones were checked. The Saviz, which is this ship, this guy right here, which was used as a military base, was attacked, I believe, by Israeli commandos who didn't sink it. They just crippled it, essentially, right? In this funny little area, that shit right in there, all this stuff. There's the Saviz has been observed holding patterns across the Red Sea and off the coast of Yemen. That's this guy right here. And then it got attacked. It was effectively, it got a hole blown in the side. And everybody thinks it was Israeli commandos because they were using it as, they were basically threatening Israel with it. And then this was off of Djibouti. U.S. and Saudi announced, however, asserts that the vessel is an important naval asset operated by Iran's Revolutionary Guard. The Saviz, they said this. They kept telling everybody in the world that this was just a tanker, but it was a tanker that just loitered, and then boats would come out to it, pick up weapons, and then leave. It was a gun tanker. Thanks, Rex. Glad you noticed my Flynn shirt. So this is pretty common, by the way. This is also how how Hamas gets a lot of their weapons, is that this ship and others like it from Iran, and they do this throughout in Somalia and parts of Africa. Every time that they're trying to drop off weapons to Iranian-backed militias, they have one of these ships come down there and just kind of loiter around in the sea, and then smaller boats come out and pick up their weapons and then go back. And off the coast of Gaza, what they would do is they would have these smaller boats come out and they would just drop these big crates full of weapons and shit wrapped in plastic off the side of the boat, and then Hamas divers would come out and pick the shit up. Yeah, it's a floating bookmobile for weapons. That's exactly right, Mike. And it got blown up, essentially. It didn't sink, I don't think. I think they just wounded it, and it had to leave the area. But the idea is that, and this is interesting, because whatever you think of whether or not this fire was internal to it, this did not happen because the Israelis did it by anybody's measure. It happened inside the boat itself. So this was maybe they had Russian crew and they were smoking too close to something. But in terms of this one, they absolutely... it was definitely sabotage from the exterior. It was definitely a bomb. Oh, excellent. It was definitely a bomb attached to the hull and all that kind of stuff. They think it was Israeli commandos, and it makes sense. But this guy, this is their own damage, and this is the one that and I don't know if do they have a picture? Yeah, they don't have a picture of it. But it survived. Like, they didn't sink the ship. They just made it useless. That's what the Israeli special forces did. They just made it unseaworthy, as it were, if that's a word, and it had to return to port and be repaired, as opposed to just blowing it out of the fucking water. Same shit. Anyways, also, just for the record, anybody who, if you're pro-Russia, you're pro-slavery. Period. Just for the record. I just want you to know that. If you're on the side of Russia in this, in the battle with Ukraine or fucking anywhere else, you're pro-slavery. They have been working with the RSF and helping them round up children and child soldiers and locals and forcing them to fight as cannon fodder. They have been abducting their own migrants in their country and forcing them to go to war in Ukraine. It's fucked up. A lot of people believe that the explosion that happened at that big factory in St. Petersburg is because the people there were sick of being rounded up. That they set that fire and bugged out. Yeah. So, also, let's see. Yeah, there we go. These are the folks that Russia backs, just for the record. Sudan sees surge in child soldier recruitment as fighting continues. This is from Al Jazeera. This is a day ago. This particular story is about a kid, this guy right here, who was, he's 16 years old, and he was taken by the RSF. Yeah, he was carrying goods. He was captured by the paramilitary RSF, who forced him to, let's see, I'm sorry, I can't, to work for them. Yeah, they beat him up. They captured him. He managed to escape because they had him on a boat, on a raft, basically, and they were taking him to another part of the country, and or a truck rather. Beg your pardon. I'm thinking of another story. He was on a truck, and these guys stopped to take a piss or something like that, and he just jumped out and ran as far as he fucking could, and he managed to survive. So, just, you know. Meanwhile, also, if you're supporting Hamas, I don't know if you remember this girl from the motorcycle. They made her prepare a video saying that 2 of the other people with her had been killed, and they still have her. According to people who have been freed, she has been sexually assaulted multiple times. It is an ongoing horror that she is in, and they keep saying, unless you stop the bombing, you'll find out what her fate is. Just saying. Yeah. So, back to these guys. Hold on. This is this dipshit.
President would like to have something hot going on before the election or during the election.
And by the way, you can tell how inserious someone is by them flippantly saying, yeah, a war just to win an election, you know, on this scale especially. The wag the dog thing, there was a reason why the wag the dog idea, no one supports Hamas. Yes, they do, Kimchi. I'm not saying any of you do, but there are absolutely people who do. And again, same thing with from the river to the sea. That's what that means. They want a one-state solution, not a two-state solution, and it's not equal rights. They want a Jew-free Palestine, and that means Israel. So that's the same thing. If you're saying I don't support Hamas, but you support that, then you support by any means to get to that, and what's the difference? Anyways, point being, the wag the dog idea, which has been around, you know, it was like kind of almost made big during Clinton. It got laid off on him, even though largely I think the idea about it as a real election strategy was around George H.W. Bush, right? That with both the 11-day Iraq War and any number of smaller incursions and that kind of shit. So, in particular, these folks. Well, hold on. Let me make sure that we're still on track.
Well, the National Intelligence Agencies came. came out today and warned that that Hezbollah has assets here in America, and that they're concerned that this could mean a direct strike here in the homeland, which
is a concern. There's a difference between, again, this is where these guys, if you hear this and you go, somehow this is completely plausible, that someone's concerned about this or worry about it or expectation that there might be some, because there are assets everywhere. It's a huge fucking country we live in, that the chances that there being somebody that wants to do something awful is definitely a possibility. There's a huge difference between that potential and that being, strategically something that you have to respond to.
I don't think would play.
Oh, sorry. Was there sound issues? Okay. And then, yeah. I mean, it's such fucking gibberish, but it's interesting that they'll focus this much on this, but then when we talk about the greatest domestic threat to the homeland being, right-wing extremists and white nationalists and, Michigan militia types, somehow that's just, that's a bridge too far.
Well, for all of those who had an open border.
I mean, this is the big exposure we have at the open border. Not only are we going to economically destroy our country by bringing so many illegal immigrants into the country so quickly, it's so poor.
I would say, so first of all, it's nice of you to think that I suppose if we slowed down how many illegal people got into the country, that would be economically feasible, which sounds like somebody who wants all the migrant labor, but without all those pesky regulations. So that's right. There's no such thing as OSHA when you're not here legally. That's right. Fuck you and any job protections. If you prick your finger picking strawberries or something like that, or get a splint or whatever and it gets infected, we just dump you across the border. Like, that's terrific. Meanwhile, first of all, there's no indication that the volume of people crossing the border, even at its height, is going to negatively impact our economy in any way. As a matter of fact, we don't have enough workers.
That Hezbollah can walk across the border, and
no, they can't.
No doubt they are here. They could activate. I mean,
really? Is that do we know how they activate or whatever? Does someone have a remote control? Are they Manchurian? Do you have to, if someone says Klaatu Verata Nikto, do they automatically start murdering people?
What was it? 15 of the 19 hijackers were
Saudi,
actually from Saudi Arabia.
Which is the opposite of Yemen.
And we're here legally for the most part, I think. But now we're looking at a different threat.
Well, no, that was a real threat. That was a real issue. And you're imagining the possibility of a second threat. That's not the same thing as looking at a threat. The assumption that people are coming across the border and that those that do make it across are violent themselves is a fucking reach.
And it only takes 19 to, do something very bad in this country.
No, I think it takes a lot more than that now. I mean, we have changed a lot since 2001.
As we saw on 9/11.
No, it's not the same on 9/11. Like, nobody could take over a fucking plane with a box cutter now.
Nikki Haley, during the last debate,
who looks strangely foreign,
basically called you an anti-Semite. Why do you hate the Jews so much?
Oh, my gosh. As Ron DeSantis says, that's cheap garbage. And as I tweeted, I'm living rent.
Oh, by the way, he's backing DeSantis.
Free in her head. And trust me, there's lots of empty space in here. She has.
By the way, these are Republicans they're shitting on, and there's no reason why you and I should get in the way of that.
Her understanding of the bills that I've been voting on is 1 inch deep. Whereas, Ron DeSantis, even though he and I disagree on this issue, he understands where I'm coming from, and he's not astroturf like Nikki Haley is. This is why she stopped taking questions at town halls. If you go more than one question deep, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But she was attacking me on votes. For instance, I didn't vote for the $14 billion financial package to Israel. Now, we can have a discussion about that, whether we can.
Right. This is going to be a difficult one. That Stu just stiffened up. Is that Pat Gray over there in the hat? Or who the fuck is sitting over there? Does anybody know?
Toward that,
Does it matter?
we should be doing that.
There's not even a camera on him. Like, we get 3 shots. We're not even going to bother to fucking look at Stu during any of this. What the fuck is Stu's job? Does he just read his laptop until the interview is over, and then Beck asks him questions? I don't know. Who the fuck knows?
We're not. She claims that I'm anti-Semitic or anti-Israel because I'm not voting for foreign aid. But here's the thing. I've never voted for foreign aid to any country. I'm not picking on any country. And then there were some resolutions.
I'm not racist. I pick on everybody. I just do it from a position of privilege, so it looks like I'm racist.
Solutions where we can have legitimate disagreements about whether it infringes on free speech. And then there was a vote that I took against a resolution that says anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Now, it's true that a lot of anti-Semites are against Israel, just by definition. But
yeah, I'd say, yeah, most of them, all but 2.
But it's not true that if you have harsh criticism of Israel, or even if you don't believe in Zionism, that you are also an anti-Semite.
Well,
because if that were true, there'd be a lot of Jews who are anti-Semite.
I know. I was going to say, a lot of the Hasidic Jews here in America despise Israel, say it's an abomination of a state because it's not a religious state. So are they?
That's because it doesn't go far enough. They're Zionists, but they believe that no one else should be allowed in. That's racism. That's bigotry. Just as a matter of fact, it's point Israel that it doesn't acquiesce to their extremist beliefs. Speaking, and particularly since there's a large chunk of maggots who think that America should be a Christian nationalist state. That doesn't mean we are, because they want it.
Anti-Semites too? No.
No. They're Zionists. They're just proto-Zionists. They're MAGA Zionists.
I don't think so.
That's because it's a stupid analogy and it doesn't apply.
I don't think Gerald Nadler's anti-Semite. He's Jewish. And he spoke against that resolution on the floor.
Okay.
The sad thing is we've had 19 votes like that since our new speaker became speaker. And what we should be focusing on is our own spending bills and cutting spending. Instead, we
stupid Democrat who's right.
Passed these resolutions, which are frankly political gotchas. The Republicans are trying to use that issue to catch the Democrats up in votes and then use it to get them unelected.
And the only person they managed to catch in that vote was Thomas fucking Massey.
I just don't have an
Ziontologists. That's what they are. It's a great that's a great word for them. Ziontologists. I believe that Zion is a place that's in deep space, and you have to get clear before you can go there.
For that, when we should be focused on our fiscal issues. Right now in the House, we are about to throw away all the spending caps that were put in place this summer. I was on your show talking about this, taking heat from you.
Because I said, I remember when I was young and naive.
Yes.
Yes.
You said, I said, maybe I'm getting fooled here. But Glenn, they're signing it into law. They did. The White House and the Senate put those caps into law.
Yeah.
And now they are undoing the law. We've never got that far. It's kind of Lucy in the football. Oh
my God, what a tired analogy. I'm sorry. I got to tell you, I'm completely bored by this dumb motherfucker. Talk about a circular argument. You have so much to talk about, so much possible. If there was all this Hunter Biden evidence, and if it was clear as day about who was the good guys and who was the bad guys, and when the president should act and when he shouldn't, and he was violating the War Powers Act when he did all this stuff, the conversation should not be this meandering. And I apologize for getting caught up in the meandering aspect of it. That is my fault as a broadcaster. I take that. I beg your pardon, ladies and gentlemen, that I entertained the idea that these assholes would eventually get to a fucking point when the way they talk about it, there are heaps of evidence against Hunter Biden. It is clear as day that Joe Biden is guilty of treason, including his handling of the border. It is we have a porous, open border, which apparently, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but if you have an open border that's allowing in Hezbollah, apparently it would also allow in a bunch of Sunnis and Shias, and I guess they beat the duck fuck out of each other somewhere around El Paso. So I don't know why we have to worry about it. Anyways, so if the border is completely open, if the venom gets through, so does the anti-venom. It's just kind of how it works.